So he says that they say that the path to the love of God is through the love of Israel. And this is actually sourced in the Baal Shem Tov, who was just a lover of people, not only of Israel, but all people. Up there. Okay. A lot of ambiguity with Parshat Balak, especially when Bilam is offering the blessings that the rabbis claim. There's a long tradition of analyzing Bilam's blessings as actually curses in disguise. And that's an interesting topic in and of itself. And we'll read a little bit Slonimer, Rabbi Shalom Noach Berzhovsky, the late of Yerushalayim. We will, the Slonimer Rebbe, we will read his take on how the dynamic of a blessing or a curse in disguise. We also have a blessing in disguise. That's a different topic for another time. But a curse in disguise, how it works, and what specifically, what was he trying to affect by offering a curse in disguise as a blessing? And where he's going to go is by showing us that that it was the great love, the capacity for love that the people of Israel in the desert had. So let's jump right in and go to that really complicated, but also beautiful and moving. May we all be blessed with that capacity for love, both horizontal, love for Israel, love for all people, as well as love for the Holy One, the vertical, love all around, what we call 360 degrees of real love. So, here's the Slonimer. וזה תוכן הברכות של בלעם. כשאמרו חז"ל, and this is a quote, and this is the content of the blessing that Bilam. Let me just also paraphrase for those of you who haven't read the Parsha or are not familiar. Bilam was the top sorcerer of the land at that time. And the king of Moab, Balak, sends a delegation. He basically contracts with him. He hires him to curse the people of Israel who are camped. Their encampment is right outside the border of Moab. And Balak, the king of Moab, and actually we have two different peoples collaborating on this, the Midianites and the Moabites. And Balak, on behalf of both the Midianites and the Moabites, asks Bilam, who's a Midianite sorcerer, to curse the people of Israel, spiritually, ritually curse them in order to assure his victory against them. He's concerned. There's this large encampment of a people that's wandering through the desert at his border, and he feels threatened. So Bilam reluctantly, but eventually agrees, and he tells Balak that there's only one thing he needs to consider, is that Bilam can only say what God puts in his mouth. So he can't promise a curse. He can only promise that whatever comes out of his mouth is, and he'll try his best to satisfy Balak's desire, but he cannot promise. So the Salomon starts by a quote from the Parsha with a commentary of the sages in the Talmud, which is in Sanhedrin Kufay 105. That is the reference in the Talmud. שמברכותיו של אותו רשע אנו למדים מה היה בליבו לקללם. The Talmud says that if you read the content of the blessings, you can deduce from that what were his intentions to curse. שכולם עניינים השייכים לקשר הדבקות של ישראל והשם יתברך. That all of the supposed originally intended curses had to do with the link between Israel and the Holy One, blessed be. So you see that the sorcerer, according to the Talmud, is going right to the, you could say the umbilical cord, right to the kind of core of the spiritual strength of the people of Israel, which is their linkage to the Holy One, blessed be. You see this, it almost looks like this Star Wars between the forces of evil and the forces of good, and forces of evil want to cut off the the power source. I just want to say that I have a lot of trouble with this because Bilam, really, if you read the text on its face, he seems to be very devoted to to Adonai, to the same God. He's speaking to the same God that's the God of Israel, Yod Heh Vav Heh, Adonai, and multiple times he's reluctant to offer this curse, and he's devoted to saying whatever words God put in his mouth. So I just want to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But right now, we're going to go here with the rabbis in the Talmud who are really down on Bilam. But I think that what surfaces is a really fascinating spiritual and psychological dynamic, which is how do you tease out intentionality from the words you hear from somebody else? And you've probably seen this many times, that somebody talks, one of the simplest sort of like, I say, common everyday life example is when people apply cynicism. And they say something, but the tone of voice doesn't match the beauty of the positivity, and that there's something cynical, they're saying something positive, but they're actually alluding underneath that to something negative. Like a good boy. Like, yeah, right. Now that's a very interesting dynamic, and I think it's worthwhile paying attention to, because that duplicity or that inconsistency between words spoken and intentionality are a huge spiritual obstacle. And let's look at this a little more. So Bilam the sorcerer is going right for severing the connection, or the purity of the connection between the people of Israel and the Holy One, blessed be. Ukmo she'amar, and now he's quoting from one of the blessings. Bilam offers actually three different attempts at cursing that turn into blessings. So there's these three different paragraphs, and this is from the third blessing, which is the most powerful. And it says, Lo hibit avon beYaakov, velo ra'a amal b'Yisrael, Adonai Elokav imo. You will not see a stain as of a sin in Jacob, and you will not see a wrongdoing in Israel. Adonai, his God, is with him or with them. So that's the quote. And then the rabbis in the Talmud says, Pirush, שרצה להזכיר חטאיהם של ישראל לפני השם, כדי לנתק אותם על ידי זה מהשם יתברך. So here, say the Talmudists, the sages, Bilam is saying like, you won't see any sin among them, you won't see any wrongdoing, God is with them. And they read it, oh, you won't see any sin among them, right? No wrongdoings, really. God is with them. Why? Because he is in this sort of tricky kind of use of language. He wants to remind the Holy One, as it were, that they have sinned, and therefore they don't deserve the connection with the Holy One. They don't deserve the power and the nourishment and the protection, from their connection with the higher realms. But instead of wanting to say that directly, it came out as a blessing. וכן מה דכתוב, אחר כך וישת אל המדבר פניו. This is why later, this is a long paragraph, but later it says that Bilam, this third time, did not use any of his magical tricks. The first two times that he attempted to curse, apparently, by implication we learn, he tried to use kisamim v'nechashim, which is the powers of the occult. It didn't work. This third time, he did not use any of that, but he looked over onto the desert. So the rabbis interpret, why did he look onto the desert? So consistent with their claim that his intentionality can be deduced from the blessings that came out. V'shavi lekabel agla de'avdo Israel b'midbar apuhi. This is Aramaic quote from, I believe, from the Gemara, that says, because he wanted to remind the Holy One by looking at the desert that it was at the desert that they worshipped the golden calf, which is considered the sin of all sins. שרצה לעורר את חטא העגל שהתורה קוראת עליו חטאה גדולה. As I just said, he wanted to trigger the memory, as if he's advocating here, with God, and he's wanted to say, God, remember the sin of the golden calf? Again, in order to bring about a disconnection, a delinking of the people from the Holy One, blessed be. ותחת זאת יצאו מפיו הברכות, מה טובו עליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. And instead of discussing the sin of the golden calf, right? Because that's why he looked over at the desert. It was sort of like a meditation of focusing on the desert as a theme, a context for this stained history of the people. And what came out of his mouth is, how good are your tents, how Jacob, and how good are your dwellings, Israel, which is apropos as part of the morning prayer in the prayer book. Batovu alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Israel. It's part of the morning service. V'chidrashat Chazal, the Sanhedrin, again in the Talmud, she'elu batei knesiot u'batei midrashot. And the rabbis say, what did he mean by that? How good are your tents and how good are your dwellings? He meant that those actually allude to look at their synagogues and look at their schools. right? The study of Torah. Look how they study Torah. Look how they gather for prayer. והביאור בזה, כמו דכתוב בתחילה, and the meaning of this, as it's written in the beginning. Now here's going to quote a verse from 2 lines before this blessing. How good are your tents? וירא ישראל שוכן לשבטיו, ותהיה עליו רוח אלוהים. And he saw Israel encamped according to its tribes, and the Spirit of God hovered over it. היינו שראה את ישראל מאוחדים יחדיו. That means that when he looked at the camp, he saw unity. They were together. שוכן לשבטיו. That's meaning that they were dwelling in their camps. It means that all 12 camps were as if one. There's this show of unity, show of force. בלב אחד כאיש אחד. They were as if one heart and one person, which is also a concept that is mentioned in other contexts. For instance, when they received the Torah at Mount Sinai, כאיש אחד כלב אחד, there's this moment of unity where you have the body collective becomes as if one person. וממילא אין בכוחו לנתק אותם מהשם יתברך, and therefore he did not have the power to disconnect them, delink them from the Holy One, blessed be. וכמאמר צדיקים, שהדרך לאהבת השם היא על ידי אהבת ישראל. And now the Slonimer is going to not digress, I would say, because I think he's going to develop his teaching, his claim, by saying that we learn from the tzaddikim, and I think he's referring here to his predecessors, the many Hasidic rabbis that he's leans on. He's a great scholar of Hasidic philosophy and theology. So he says that they say that the path to the love of God is through the love of Israel. And this is actually sourced in the Baal Shem Tov, who was just a lover of people, not only of Israel, but all people. And this is a very deep Hasidic principle that you can't just love God. You can only really love God when you love your fellow. First, you love your fellow. I want to say kindred spirits, which is Israel, other Jews, and really all people. But specifically, you cannot love God if you're not loving the people who claim to be God lovers just as you are. This is actually kind of intuitive, but I think we too often forget. At least I'm guilty. I associate with chevre who are like, with people who are like me. At least aspiring to love God, aspiring to understand God, aspiring to live a spiritual life. How many times do I get caught up, in unloving and ungenerous thoughts or words or behaviors with people who are my journeymen and women, right? So this is a very deep principle here that there is no path to God before you learn how to be generous, open-minded, open-hearted, connected, to the people that you're associated with, that you're doing your spiritual work with. שיהודים אוהבים זה לזה. And here is going back into the traditional sort of mythic ground for our Jewish spirituality. Jews love one another. And he's not saying this cynically, by the way. This does not apply to the Bilam dynamic. I believe that to be true. Sure, we argue and fight, but underneath it all, there is a love that connects all people of Israel. Well, I don't know about all, but many. I just spent the day yesterday at the Nyack Street Fair. We had a booth for Hebrew Learning Circles. We're out there just to meet the community and to just basically meet people and answer questions and connect and invite people into our fellowship. And sure enough, a lot of people who are Jews, or I actually spoke to somebody who's a Marano, who's 3 generations before in Europe. They converted to Catholicism to save their lives, right? He doesn't consider himself Jew. He doesn't even have the awareness. But it was a fascinating conversation. And when people come up, to talk, even if they want to argue with me, and even if they want to express all their misgivings, and explain to me why they are critical and why they're disconnected, and the trauma or the disappointments of their childhood or past, or whatever happened that got them to basically flee, maybe join other spiritual groups or not, or just go into kind of blend into the American pluralistic world of opportunity. But when they come up to me, they do because there's a concern, because there's a piece, there's the Pinta Leyid, it's called in Yiddish, the little spark of Jew, where there's that love. Because any person who comes up to me who's concerned about their Judaism, even if it's a far memory, I did bar mitzvah and I never looked back, but they bothered to stop at the booth to talk to me because there's that love. You see what I mean by love. And here he quotes "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," because it says in the Torah, he roots us in the Torah, and you shall love your fellow as you love yourself. שעל ידי שישראל שרויים באחדות, באהבה, בחיבה זה לזה, מגיעים לאהבת השם. Because it is when Israel are shruim, is our being, are immersed in unity and love and sympathy for one another, then they arrive, or they can arrive at love of God, of spiritual love. שזהו הכוח המקשר יהודי להשם יתברך, which this is the force, this meaning love for Israel, that connects a Jew to the Holy One, blessed be. So I just want to appreciate with you together, I want to appreciate the depth of this, and really to kind of sidestep the cynical comment, believe me, in my mind as well. Really? Do we really love one another? I can give you a million examples about how we Jews don't love one another. Look at the politics in Israel, or look at the politics in your synagogue if you have one, right? But I think what the Sotomer is telling us here is that is a must. Our work, our task is to develop, to refine that ability to love, to have generosity, to open up to those who share our spiritual path, our language, our Torah, we're all in this kind of cultural, spiritual milieu together. And why are we wasting time not developing a generosity and a love and a connection and a curiosity and a relationship with those who share that space together with us? Let's let that Pinta Leyid, that little spark of a love that keeps us connected into a flame, into a conscious, into a deliberate pursuit. Why not? והתשובה לביישת אל המדבר פניו. And then the answer, now the Sotomer is going back to Bilam and to the verse, and Bilam turned his gaze, his attention towards the desert, Remember why? Because he wanted to, according to the rabbi, supposedly he wanted to sort of invoke the memory of the sin of the golden calf. So the verse that said, when he turned his face to the desert and looked at the calf, he saw Israel dwelling in the order of their tribes, which the sages interpret as they dwelled in unity. But since Bilam saw this unity, he saw this great love. How did he see the great love? Well, he's a sorcerer, who knows, right? But he picked up some vibrational quality that was there, that's hinted in that verse, according to the rabbis. And he saw that with that kind of unity, with that kind of flow of connection amongst them, there was no way that he could sever their connection to Adonai, to the higher realms. And even the fact that they had committed the transgression of the golden calf, even that cannot sever their connection from the higher realms, which is a beautiful principle in and of itself. A person is not doomed because they made a mistake. People are not doomed because they made a mistake. Because the opportunity to connect, to unite, to bring out the love force is always there. They say, I remember somebody once said this to me when I started dating many years ago, and I don't know if you remember when you started dating how every little error you make, you went out with somebody and you said a stupid thing, and then you go home and you go, oh my goodness, I mean, it's like, that's it, I ruined it. Somebody once said to me, love errors are easily forgiven. So in the big picture, if the chemistry is there, whatever stupid thing I may have said, gets washed away because there's a greater connection that's destined to happen. And this is a good metaphor for what the Slonimer is bringing out. Here's somebody who's developed, or as a sorcerer, Bilam. He's in the business of doing spiritual warfare. It's a little bit like cyber warfare, right? There's this sort of like clandestine, unseen, supposedly non-violent way of bringing disconnection and destruction, right? That's his art. He's being hired to do that because apparently he has a reputation. It's probably not his first time. And what does he do according to this? He goes right to the switch. He wants to nip it at its, most effective place, which is a connection with the Holy One, right? The spiritual essence of the Israelite project in the desert, right? They are the wandering, spiritual Zen of their time, right? They're going on the force of their discovery, of their ability to connect and live in the flow of destiny. This is a model of the spiritual path. And he wants to nip that right at that place of connection. And how does he want to do that? He wants to do that by elevating, invoking, stirring up the misdeeds or the errors of the past. And what's the answer to that, says the Slonimer? It is the cultivation of the horizontal love, the love between one another, that translates into vertical love, which makes that line of connection between heaven and earth, heaven and the human experience, indestructible. Beautiful, powerful teaching. How does this apply in your life? How does this apply in our lives? How can we cultivate more love? More love to, I want to say love to everybody, but not quite yet. We're not there yet. Let's start with love with the people that we partner with practically in our spiritual work, the people who are in our minyan, people who are in our spiritual group, the people who we build community with, our families. Are we maximizing the love potential with our relatives? That is the door, that is the path to an enduring love connection and flow with the Holy One, with the source of all spirituality and all love. Thank you for sharing this teaching here today. I'm really inspired here by the Slonim. I love this. Apparently, I'm reading a book now. Let me recommend it. It's called Perfect Love, Imperfect Relationships by Wellwood. I'm forgetting his first name right now. An amazing book. And if you want to learn all about the horizontal level of love, that's a good book to learn. Let us take that love work, that love building, that love capacity expansion into our day to day. Wishing you an amazing day. Thank you for joining us for this lesson on Parshat Balak. I'm Rabbi Reuben Modik with Hebrew Learning Circles in Makom Halev Community in Nyack, New York. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave your comments. Let's continue the conversation in the comments section. Like us. If you like this teaching, how could you not? Please give us a like. And obviously, if you are in the New York area, drop a note or stop by. Bless you for this day.